Hey! Welcome back, everybody. Today we're talking about minis. That's right, sooner than we think. I think so. We are talking about Rust Console Edition for the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, next generations, and everything in between. And I'm Jade Monkey. Okay, so I know what you're thinking. Another minis video? My goodness, when is this stuff going to come out? And I agree with you. It's been forever. And minis, where are they? What's going on? There has been significant changes in this area, so that's why I wanted to share this video, because it's exciting for not only minis, because that is my favorite update by far, but also it's a big indicator for other modes of transportation that we're all going to want here in the very near future. So let's go ahead and kind of break this down. Some of this will be a review here in the front, but most of this is stuff we haven't really talked about at all. And again, it's very exciting because it does point to minis heavily, but also other big modes of transportation like trains or even modular vehicles. And as we know, modular vehicles are on the cooking. So you're probably asking yourself, Jade, how do you know it's going to be minis? Didn't they say we couldn't do those? Well, I'm going to point you back to this infamous survey where, as you can see, a lot of these things are already done, but one of the things on the menu was minicopters. So because of that, we do know that they're working on it again and that it is possible. But our biggest hang-up always has been performance, right? That's one of the biggest limiting factors. It still is. And let's be fair, it's the same thing on PC as well. So there's been significant changes in this area, or different systems that kind of help with performance. And since we've been playing this game for so long on PC, I remember these changes happening on PC, and I took note of them just before other things like minicopters or even trains came in. So I'm starting to see those indicators now in Rust Console Edition, more on the heavy side, which is very exciting. And also we know because they put it on the survey a while ago, and as you can see, there's not much left to be checked off the list. I'll be honest, if we see nuclear missiles before minis, I'm going to lose my mind. Because to be fair, it's such a core part of gameplay, whether you like it or not. It's like not having jump in the game. So it's like, yes, it'd be cool to have a monument, and it is a part of the game, but like, I'd rather be able to jump. You know what I mean? It's just, it's a core mechanic that we're going to need. So, there's two major factors, well, for us, rather, in performance. And those two things are what's called viz range, and also, well, viz, and then it is LOD. So, VIS, or visibility, is what this stands for, and I think this is from Zero Dawn Horizon. But what you're seeing here is the FOV of the player, that cone, and also the detail of the map being loaded and unloaded. So outside of your visual range, things are kind of coming in and out. These are one of the techniques that they use to help with performance. This is called viz. That's why in the game, where if you're playing and you turn really fast, like user play structures like buildings and stuff can pop in and out really quickly, and especially if you're on an older system, it's more prominent. This has been the source of a couple different glitches that we've had, but still, this is one of the major things that can also help with it. Also, you hear me say, if you're having poor performance, one of the things you can do to kind of tighten that up is to lower your FOV to something like 70 or 60, because you're literally at 90 or 120. I know we don't have 120. You're literally rendering more. So this is why old systems have a hard time with 90 FOV. But in conjunction with viz, or visibility, there's another big factor here called LODs. It stands for level of detail. Now, this isn't, none of these are unique to Rust. This is very much a core part of these 3D engines. LOD comes in two flavors. Those two flavors are mesh, which is the geometry, so the actual geometry that we're standing on, and also the textures. There's different levels of textures, but just consider it something like wallpaper. Here, let me fly over here. Stuff like this. Like this would be wallpaper, right? So textures sit on top of those things. So those two flavors of LODs can also help cut back on the overhead of performance. A lot like the way viz does by loading and unloading. LODs load in things of lower detail, or it stands for levels of detail, as you're further away. So obviously when you're close, you have the highest amount of detail, and these screen caps are from Rust Console Edition. But I actually took a series of these in the more recent build, and you can start to see some of this change. So here's level of detail as we start to scroll back. You can see more. Pay attention to the detail on the side of the buildings or even the trees. You can start to see the trees start to pop out a little bit, and less detail on some of the objects. You start to see more of the geometry. And a lot of times, too, when you're doing this, if you kind of pay attention, if you're a server owner, you kind of fade back from these rocks here, you'll start to see the rocks change. Or even if you do have detail levels on the terrain, if you're kind of far away, you notice it kind of bends and shifts. That would be a mesh LOD. So the terrain is actually one big mesh. one big flat plane. Yeah, that's right. Geometry's coming back. You thought you'd never use it or even talk about it. Guess what? Geometry. You start to see less detail here. And we're pulling back even less. And because of that, these level of details come in. There's literally like different stages as you pull back, because as you're standing in like a standard rendering frame, because you don't need to see that detail you saw up here, it loads in texture maps that are less and less, and they're smaller sizes. So again, the performance is significant once you start doing this. Now, LODs have always been in the game. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because I'm seeing LOD changes again for us on console. Now, they're doing that to get performance, yes, but the biggest thing we have and why LODs are a huge impact for transportation is, well, even like right here. As I stand here, watch as I fade back, and we're on PC here, you start to see the detail pop out. It's actually pretty far here. So you start to see the trees get more simplified. Starts to pop out. Well, because when we're moving in the helicopter, it's one of the faster, if not the fastest mode of transportation. Not to mention we're up high like this, and we're actually rendering a lot more. Remember the viz? So now we're actually not only like, our cone is huge, and we're covering a lot more terrain, so we have to render more. So things like LOD are very important for things like helicopters, especially helicopters, and especially for Unity, because we know Unity is not the best as far as performance. But and I'm not to say that Face Punch or Double 11 hasn't squeezed out amazing amounts of performance. They have. Unity is a very tough nut to crack when it comes to performance. It's not known for that. But because we have these a level of details in here, and I've started to see significant changes on our side, I'm like, dude, we saw the same thing here on PC before our minis came in a long time ago. And you're starting to see like the adjustment like it's happening sooner, like this detail pops out. And actually, let me show you. I have a side-by-side here that might help. So I circled the different areas that kind of shows you the level of details and like how simplified the textures can get. You can see the red there with the texture map, so it's like the color of the mesh, and you don't really see the texture, right? Like you don't see the dirty concrete. And over on the tree side, obviously more details. And then even as the trees, as we just saw a second ago, when the trees pull back, they're no longer meshes. They're like cardboard cutouts. They're like two pieces of paper like kind of overlapped in an X, if you've noticed that before. And they're kind of designed to face the camera. Anyways, these are all little tricks and stuff. But at a distance, it doesn't matter. But up close, you definitely notice it. If you've ever detached your camera in custom, you know what we're talking about. Because if you kind of move towards any of the trees at range, away from your character, you start to see that detail kind of look really bad. But at range, it looks fine. Anyways, because we're seeing a lot more of this significantly, it's definitely a huge indicator that we're getting faster modes of transportation, and they're also trying to squeeze out as much performance as possible. That's why this is all relevant. And you may have noticed this. For us, we kind of have, and it happens here, but it happens at such a small scale and so far away, it's kind of hard to catch on PC. But on the console side, and these are all screen caps from our version, you see texture maps get simpler, but as you pull away, you start to see just colored polygons, right? There's literally no textures on that. It's the mesh itself that's holding a color. So because we're saying, you can actually see in this frame here where the textures are fading away to the colored polygons, to the colored mesh at the bottom. No, just call it, well, it's technically colored geometry, but like the actual objects themselves can have a color, but obviously that looks like poopy, right? So, but at range, it's more acceptable. So we're starting to see more of this happen for us, which is a massive indicator. But as you know, since we have 3 different flavors of helicopters, and now we have an attack helicopter, which is very fast, this starts to make a lot more sense. And again, these colored polygons here aren't new to us. We're just seeing changes in the way they have it set, which means, and actually, this is another good indicator too. If you're in a custom server, you know, float and then travel quickly. Like use your boost and travel over the surface and watch how things change. That's another huge indicator. Like that range of change has been shifting aggressively over the last 6 months. And as I said before, since we've lived through all of Rust, since it's been in early access, here you go. See, look, simple, simple. Now the detail pops in. That's the level of detail. But since we lived through all of these changes on PC, I'm starting to see the same things for us, that, like on our side. And if you kind of notice, you go, hey, that's weird. Like, why does that look so bad so quickly? Well, it's level of detail, and we absolutely positively need it if we're going to fly quickly. And we need good performance. Remember, it's not just what exists on the map. It's the stuff that players have put down, too. So you also see a lot of this level of detail pop in and out on player structures too. So if you have a custom server, fly low over a lot of detail, and you'll see some of the polygons pop in. You'll see them be very simple color geometry, and then you'll see the textures pop in, and then they pop out just as fast. So the idea is that you can do that at a high speed and also have it so it doesn't pop. Now, as you saw, we still had pops on our side, so that's kind of Unity being Unity. But that's the single biggest indicator to show that we have transportation, air transportation. But as I said before, this does point towards other things like trains on the surface or underground, or all of them, but also cars. We do know cars is a massive part of this. But minis, right? So we have 3 different flavors, is going to be the biggest one that they have to match to, because whether they drop cars now, they're going to be dropping minis, as we saw from the list. So we do know that that performance has to be there for all vehicles, pretty much. So, you know, this being the fastest, this being the second fastest, and this being the slowest. So let's be honest, if you can match this for the attack helicopter and the mini, this is kind of a moot point. You're like, yeah, of course this one can do it. But because we had all of these, the survey, and most of this is checked off, I have some of this checked off here, you can start to see that there's literally not a lot left that's going to be coming, unless they've changed this list. But as far as we can tell, they're following all of this. And I know people are looking at caves going, that's going to be sweet. Yes, it is, but it's going to be less accessible to most people. It's like if you thought it was limiting to find a tugboat, just remember caves will be way worse, because there's usually only one on a map, and someone's going to be sitting in it. So it's not to say that we're not going to get caves or it's not important, but we need jumping first, right? Air quotes, jumping. We need a core mechanic first before we get anything else. And I think because a lot of people haven't played with minis, they don't know yet. But I'm telling you, even if you don't like them, when you play with them, you'll be like, I get it now. Like, this is core to the game. Whether you're using it or not, this is such a big part of it. So, as I said before, I don't know if we're going to have any movement here in December, or if we're going to see it at the beginning of the year, but it has to be relatively soon. At the front of 2025. I would be shocked. Now, this could be pointing towards modular vehicles or minis. But again, I would be super shocked if we didn't see minis by the end of 2025. I hope they don't wait to the end. That would be terrible, because we're going to be on our 4th year. As I said, it's like playing this game 4 years without jump. But you know, for the love, give us a balloon, give us a parachute if we got to wait until like 6 months out. You know what I mean? But either way, we're going to get some massive modes of transportation. I think it'll probably be cars first, to be honest with you, because I think that's more quote-unquote low-hanging fruit. But it's definitely large movement for these bad boys. The LODs don't really pop in like that in the settings that they have until we started to see this on PC. So I think that's very significant for us. And obviously I want this the most because it is the best update. All I want to do is fly around on a mini the whole time and just drop rocks on people. You know what I mean? It's the best part. Anyways, I was excited about that. I want to share it with you guys because I know a lot of other people are very excited with the minis as well. And if you guys are out there playing by yourself or even with a team and you're looking for some early production or early productivity, excuse me, I do have the early auto smelt. It should already be up on the end screen now, and hopefully we'll see you in the